The case against Trump begins with his policies. In 2016, the Republican platform was still caught between Mitt Romney, as the party of the Republicans, and the Trump party. Today's version is more extreme. Mr. Trump favors a 20% tariff on all imports and has talked of charging over 200% or even 500% on cars from Mexico. He proposes to deport millions of irregular immigrants, many with jobs and American children. He would extend tax cuts even though the budget deficit is at a level usually seen only during war or recession, suggesting a blithe indifference to sound fiscal management. We know he's not a sound fiscal manager. We know that. He can't manage his own books or his own businesses. He is constantly in debt, multiple bankruptcies. These are my words, not theirs, but we talk about that on this show all the time. So these policies, they say, all right, the tax cuts, the deportation of millions of irregular immigrants, the 20% tariffs, or the up to 500% on cars from Mexico, these policies would be inflationary, potentially setting up a conflict with the Federal Reserve. They would risk igniting a trade war that would ultimately impoverish America. The combination of inflation, out-of-control deficits, and institutional decay would bring forward the day when foreigners worry about lending the U.S. Treasury unlimited money. America's economy, they say, is the envy of the world. But that rests on it being an open market which embraces creative destruction, innovation, and competition. Sometimes it seems as if Mr. Trump wants to return to the 19th century, using tariffs and tax breaks to reward his friends and punish his enemies, as well as to finance the state and minimize trade deficits. Politics could yet wreck the foundations of America's prosperity. Another reason to fear a second Trump term is that the world has changed. In 2017 to 2021, it was largely at peace. Mr. Trump supporters chalk that up to his unpredictability and willingness to take strong and unconventional action, a combination that can indeed keep awkward countries in line. When the foreign policy elite warned of dire consequences after the assassination of Soleimani, one of Iran's main generals, Trump was vindicated. But as the next president takes office, two wars will be endangering America's security. In Ukraine, Russia has the upper hand, putting Vladimir Putin in a position to threaten further aggression in Europe. In the Middle East, a regional war creeping toward Iran could yet suck in the United States. These conflagrations would test Trump in a way that his first term did not. His glib promises to bring peace to Ukraine in a day and his open-ended encouragement of Israel's offensives are not reassuring. Even worse is his contempt for alliances. Although these are America's greatest geopolitical strength, Mr. Trump sees them as scams that let weak countries scrounge off their military power. Bluster and threats may see Mr. Trump through, but they could equally destroy NATO. China will be watching as it weighs up how aggressive to be against Taiwan. Asian allies may calculate they can no longer trust America's nuclear guarantee. The risks for domestic and foreign policy are amplified by the last big difference between Mr. Trump's first term and a possible second one. He would be less constrained. The president who mused about firing missiles at drug labs in Mexico was held back by the people and institutions around him. Since then, the Republican Party has organized itself around fealty to Mr. Trump. Friendly think tanks have vetted lists of loyal people to serve in his next administration. The Supreme Court has weakened the checks on presidents by ruling that they cannot be prosecuted for official acts. If external constraints are looser, much more will depend on Mr. Trump's character. Given his unrepentant contempt for the Constitution after losing the election in 2020, it is hard to be optimistic. Half his former cabinet members have refused to endorse him. The most senior Republican senator describes him as, quote, a despicable human being. Both his former chief of staff and former head of the Joint Chiefs call him a fascist. If you were interviewing a job applicant, they say, you would not brush off such character references. Good presidents unite the country. Mr. Trump's political genius is for turning people against each other. After the death of George Floyd, he suggested the army shoot protesters in the leg. America's prosperity depends on the idea that people are treated fairly, regardless of their politics. Trump has threatened to turn the Justice Department on his political enemies. Next to Mr. Trump, Kamala Harris stands for stability. True, she is underwhelming as a politician. She has struggled to tell voters what she wants to do with power. She seems indecisive and unsure. However, she has abandoned the Democrats' most left-wing ideas and is campaigning near the center, flanked by Liz Cheney and other Republican exiles. She has ordinary shortcomings, none of them disqualifying. Presidents do not have to be saints, and we hope that a second Trump presidency would avoid disaster. But, they say, Mr. Trump poses an unacceptable risk to America and the world. If the Economist had a vote, we would cast it for Ms. Harris. I think that says it. I mean, I could have written parts of that, and I think we've talked about so many bits of that on this show. It is, to me, so clear, it's so stark, and it's so scary, frankly, a second Trump term this time. So that's from The Economist, and I wanted to share it with you. I read you most of it, so you pretty much don't have to read it now. But I thought those are great takes.
Something that you and Cenk were talking about was the voter turnout, early voter turnout in Pennsylvania, and talking about seniors and women and the turnout there. And I was thinking about this meme that I saw, and it's about, there's no such thing, you can ban abortion. There's no such thing as banning abortion, only banning legal abortion. And that I was thinking that these seniors, especially the women amongst the seniors, remember a time when it was the whole backroom abortion thing, right? They remember that. This is a segment of the population that knows what it's like, and they can see the deaths already stacking up with these Trumpian abortion era laws. And so perhaps that's what's motivating these older women to get out and maybe not vote Republican like they had in the past.
That's such a great take. It's true that these people have lived through the pre-Roe years. And you know what's next? The abortion pill. Yeah. It will go away. Your access to that will go away. They are not stopping. This is a radical agenda. And even as they throw those rhetorical Molotov cocktails toward the left by calling them radicals and Marxist and she's a communist, the real radicalism, the real activism is the activist court, Supreme Court, granting presidential immunity, overturning Roe, allowing the disenfranchisement of voters in Virginia, so close to the election.
Crazy.
This is a court that has an agenda, and they're bought and paid for, of course, by the right. We've seen that with Clarence Thomas, with Alito.
Their agenda is cash.
Yeah. I mean,
and
that
fancy
too.
Trips on big jets and concerts and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all of that.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.